The show starts and we see a huge abyss that it's her first time excavating and delving in the abyss completely by herself. But due to their areas being close together, she was traveling with her friend Nat. They split up, and Rico manages to get a haul of relics so massive she can barely transport them. She goes to try and find Nat to help her with it. After turning a corner, she sees a giant beastly serpent called a Crimson Split Jaw moving slowly towards Nat, who we see has suffered a head injury and is unconscious. Worried for Nat's safety, Rico blows on her whistle, which draws the attention of the Split Jaw to her. It comes after her as she tries to run away, after getting hit by the tail of the Split Jaw while her bag of relics falls down. Rico forgets about the bag and decides to seek shelter. She then gets cornered to the point of almost being devoured. Just then, an energy blast of some kind shoots through the petrified trees, hitting the Split Jaw, causing it to flee. Rico gets up and wonders what just saved her and goes to investigate. She finds a robot boy who is seemingly unconscious. Wondering where he came from, she goes and gets Nat to help her with carrying him back to their home at the Beltrero orphanage. They think of how they should get him past the director. Nat asks his friend to act as if his book fell down, which makes the director move away, and they slide past. The next day in the class, the director gives a lecture about how the orphans should be grateful at having their whistles and tells them about the punishments of keeping any relics for themselves while looking at Rico. Later on, the instructor asks Rico about her haul and how she saved Nat. Rico then tells her instructor, Jiro, that she wants to be assigned to somewhere deeper in the abyss so she can build up more experience and catch up to her mother, who is the highest ranked diver. Jiro reminds her that she can't, as with her current experience, she could barely handle ascending from just 400 meters in the abyss, telling her that she just needs to work hard on what she can right now and keep at it. She will eventually get there. Her friends join her as she starts to cry. They ask how they should wake the boy they hid. Later at night, with help of her friends, Rico manages to revive the robot boy after zapping him with a high voltage who was just asleep. He wakes up and asks where he is. They tell him that they are orphans who are learning to become cave divers. Rico starts asking him questions, but it becomes apparent that he has amnesia and doesn't even remember much. In the meantime, one of her friends tells them that their earlier shock made the other lights go out as well, and that they should hide the robot boy. Jiro comes in and inspects the room, but finds nothing since the robot boy used his extendable arms to hide. Jiro takes Rico away to clean the orphanage as a punishment for her acts, while the robot boy looks at himself and thinks what he is. Rico gives him the name of Reg, and they head out of the orphanage using Reg's extendable arms. She then takes him to a high vantage point overlooking the entire city of Orth, which is a city that was made around the entry point of the abyss. Just as the sun rises, beautifully illuminating the city, Rico tells him that because she's never seen or heard about anything like him before, he must have come from the lowest levels of the abyss. She is excited and tells him all about the great city and the abyss, which Reg is shocked to see. The next day, Rico and all of her friends go through the compilation of all recovered relics that have ever been discovered and confirm that there's never been anything like Reg. Due to this, Rico fears that Reg might be taken away or dismantled if he was ever found out. The next day, they come up with a plan to disguise him as just a regular orphan and make him come to the orphanage and find work. Reg visits the orphanage and talks to Jiro, who asks him where he is from and how his arms are like that. Reg somehow fools him and becomes part of the orphanage. Reg begins his training as a diver, receiving the lowest rank of a bell whistle. A few months pass by as Reg sees everyone dive into the abyss while he stays back since he has not gotten his red whistle yet. Later on, near the mouth of the abyss, Rico and Reg view some people coming up from the abyss. Rico notices a man called Habog and his team are returning from their expedition to the second layer of the abyss. They see Habog hand over a white whistle, along with some sealed documents to another man. One of the men in the crowd notices the white whistle and says they know who that belongs to, stating that it's Lisa the Annihilator's whistle. Reg asks Rico what does it mean if it's just a whistle, but Rico is stunned and says that Lisa is her mother's name. Shortly after, a festival starts around the city in celebration for the return of Lisa's white whistle, saying that her last dive she started around 10 years ago has finally been completed. Rico is soberly reflecting on her mother's white whistle, which was given to her by Habog as she is the next of kin. She thinks about when Habog handed her the whistle and she was hesitant since it was a white whistle, but still decided to keep it. He also tells her that a letter was found as well, which she can view after a few days. Seeing Rico sit around all sad, Jiro comes over to her and reminds her that this festival is meant to be a showcase of just how amazing her mother was, so she shouldn't look so upset. They chat for a bit and Jiro tells her about the reason why she needs to wear glasses, saying that there's nothing physically wrong with her eyesight and revealing that it's a curse of the abyss, telling her that her mother became pregnant with her a short time before embarking on a 10-month dangerous expedition to the fourth layer of the abyss. He then explains that Lisa used a rare relic known as the curse-repellent vessel to return Rico to safety. He tells her that she could have gotten all the fame that was needed if she had gotten the rare relic, but she risked it all for her since she was so special. He tells her that she brought her to the orphanage as well. Rico feels happy and runs off thinking that she will be just like her mother. Later that night, Rico is given permission to view the sealed documents left for her from her mother, revealing that her mother found all new kinds of creatures down in the depths of the abyss. They view various drawings of mysterious animals, but one picture makes Rico stop her gaze. One of them is a drawing of a humanoid figure that is similar to Reg. They then see a piece that only has writing on it, which states that at the bottom of the abyss, she will be waiting. This makes Rico think if she should embark on a journey. The next day, she talks to her friends, she yanks this bit of paper, and then once back at the orphanage, tells all of her friends that she has decided to descend into the abyss in order to find her mother. Nat, however, completely opposes the idea, stating that she will never be able to return to the surface if she does, due to the curse of the abyss and the strains of ascension, which basically makes it so as you progress deeper down, going back up becomes much more taxing on your body. Nat then further explains the effects of each layer on a normal person's body. He explains that ascending from the second layer of the abyss, you might get some dizziness and nausea. Going into the third layer will make your body feel heavy, the fourth layer will, but a heavy burden on the body, and they might lose their minds. But if you ascend even 10 meters while being on the fifth layer of the abyss, you will perceive bleed from every orifice. Rico still had made up her mind and wants to go into the abyss to find her mother. The next day, Reg does his first dive into the first layer with Nat, where he's now been promoted to a red whistle. Reg tries to dig in the mud, but Nat tells him to dig mere rocks as things are better preserved. Reg lifts a huge slab and finds a squishy item, which is also a relic. Later on, Reg is scared when he finds the remains of a person in prayer. Nat scares him even more by telling him that kids usually die if they keep thinking about their birthday. Reg then explains to Nat that he believes he will find the answers to his own identity and understand the reasoning behind his lost memories and why he ascended to the surface in the first place if he travels with Rico to the bottom of the abyss. Nat is frustrated that Reg also wants to leave and storms off. Later that night at the orphanage, Rico reveals that they plan to sneak out before daybreak. To help them out, Shiggy, one of Rico's friends, gives them a map which shows all of the current 6 layers known as the abyss. Shiggy had stolen a copy from the director to better help Rico. He explains each and every layer of the abyss down to the 6th layer from where no diver returns. Shiggy explains that only black whistles are allowed to venture down to the 4th and 5th layer, and even they cannot go to the 6th layer since only a handful of white whistles can only travel there. This makes Rico even more excited to go and see her mother. Nat then begins another argument with Rico about going, telling her that her mother most likely died a long time ago, since it would be impossible for someone to survive down there for 10 years, even if they were a white whistle. Rico runs off crying, not wanting to hear it. At night, Rico heads down while Red wants to say goodbye to his friend who is still asleep. On his way out, Jiro catches him but lets him go as he was concerned about Rico as well and asks Reg to take care of her. Reg heads out as well. They head out of the orphanage with Shiggy. Rico, Shiggy, and Reg meet Nat, who apologizes to Rico for saying such hurtful things and guides them to the wharf quarter, an unguarded entry point into the abyss. They then have a sorrowful goodbye, with Rico telling Nat that even if they never get to see each other again, they'll always be connected to each other by the abyss, saying that Rico and Reg depart on their journey and dive into the abyss. While Shiggy and Nat cry at their farewell, Rico and Reg manage to descend deep down into the first layer. Rico wakes up and sees the Reg had used extendable arms to create a barrier in case of any danger. She asks Reg to wake up and they go to explore the first layer, which is known as the edge of the abyss. Rico tells Reg that they are about 600 meters down and if they keep going they will be able to head down much quickly. They get hungry and after successfully catching some fish, Rico makes a quick meal for them and they enjoy it while Rico looks at the weird compass. Reg says that it does not move no matter how much you shake it. Rico finds this amusing and while shaking it, she lets go of it and it gets swept away with the water. Reg then consoles Rico by showing her a letter that was slipped into his backpack before they left the orphanage. It contains a copy of the sketches from her mother's drawings along with vital information about the abyss. She also finds a note from Jiro, the orphanage leader, the one who put this note into Reg's backpack, stating that he's going to start pursuing them after sunrise, and if he catches them, he's going to bring them back to the orphanage. Rico decides that they must race to the second layer as any Red Whistle member who goes that deep gets written off as dead. They decide to drop down even below so that they are not caught. They enter the lair of a spider creature known as a Silk Fang. Rico tells Reg to use it as an anchor, as they can't leave their territory, and they have to drop down in order to escape from it. They start walking down, and soon they reach the mouth of the second layer known as the Forest of Temptation. They take a break and start talking when Reg notices something in the bushes. They make their way down quick, using Reg's extended arms, however, even with that, it's not enough to escape their pursuer. He jumps down and it turns out to be Haba, who takes an interest in Reg, calling him a treasure of the underworld. After inspecting him, he reveals to them that Nat and Shiggy requested him to escort them safely to the second layer of the abyss. Reg feels relaxed since a black whistle will accompany them, but Rico, however, while appreciating the offer, declines, saying that she and Reg need to do this on their own as they view it as a final test from their teacher. Belaf understands and gives Rico a vaccine which she will need at the second layer, as well as some steam buns. Then informs them about the guardian at the secret camp, Ozen. Belaf tells them that Ozen was the one who helped her mother transport her to the surface when she was born. He tells Rico that he can't get into the details about her, but just to be wary. They say their farewells, and shortly after, Rico and Reg reach the second layer of the abyss, where they will now never be searched forever again. As Rico and Reg wander through the forest of temptation, they look at their surroundings as they are filled with fresh air and smell of greenery. Rico tells Reg about the tress and how they are helpful in direction, but just then they hear someone calling out for help. Rico and Reg make their way down to help the person in need. At a clearing, however, they find a large bird-like creature near the body of a diver. Reg is about to attack it, but Rico stops him and explains that that creature is a corpse weeper, and that they mimic the pleas and cries of those they capture in order to lure others into their colonies. She tells him that the diver is already dead, and they cannot help him. But just then, another corpse weeper dives down, grabbing Rico, which then flies to its nest, trying to feed her to its chicks. Several more begin to attack Reg, and in a desperate attempt, he activates the cannon in his hand, destroying several of the corpse weepers and a large portion of the surrounding landscape. Rico, who falls unconscious, falls down while Reg runs and grabs the fallen. He brings her to a safe location, and we see that even though Rico didn't ascend much, she is still suffering from the strains of ascension. After waking up, Rico is insanely impressed with Reg's arm cannon and dubs it the incinerator. Reg thinks that it was luck that the weapon did not hit Rico and that he should be more careful. However, he passes out shortly after, due to the strain of using the weapon. While unconscious, Reg dreams of Rico being eaten by the corpse weeper and wakes up when she explodes. Rico is happy that he is awake and tells him that he can control this cannon and he does not need to be afraid. Rico has some steaks cooking on his stone slab. Reg starts eating some, and it's delicious. He says he's impressed that she managed to hunt something down out here. She says actually it's the corpse weepers, which also eat humans. This makes Reg feel weird as he thinks that he is eating other people, but Rico tells him to relax as this is how the circle of life moves in Abyss. They travel further down using Reg's extended arms and are able to cover a lot of ground. Rico and Reg then proceed to the lowest area of the Forest of Temptation, known as the Inverted Forest, where Reg's extend arms don't work as well due to the strong wind currents. Rico feels chilly since the place is so dark. They decide to rest, but they get hit by some rocks. They see some red-eyed monkeys who approach them. They get chased by a group of these red-eyed monkeys, who stop after they leave their territory. Continuing on, Rico and Reg then approach the Seeker Camp, which was originally built as a place for delvers to rest who were planning to go deeper. As no one responds and no rope is being lowered for them, Reg launches his arms up, preparing to pull himself and Rico up. When he feels something is wrong, a woman approaches and grabs both his arms. The woman is no other than Ozen, who is shocked to see Rico alive. Ozen lets go of his arms and the bridge is lowered. After going up, Rico feels a bit dizzy and vomits due to the depths of the second layer. And Reg finally meet the white whistle holder, Ozen the Immovable. Making their way inside, Rico then thanks Ozen for helping her mother carry her up to the surface so long ago. This, however, amuses Ozen, and she points out that there were several times she had considered abandoning the curse-repelling vessel due to its sheer weight. Rico shows her the paper that Lisa wrote for her and tells Ozen that she intends to travel down to the abyss as well. This makes Ozen a bit skeptical. Ozen then tells them that she was curious to find out how a pair of red whistle holders managed to make their way here, but she had other matters to attend to. Ozen instructs her apprentice Merak to listen to them, and that tomorrow she will hear them out personally so that she can send them home as well. Ozen then lends them blue whistles as their red whistles would be alarming to others and cause issues, so she lends them blue whistles while they're holding on to Lisa's white whistle until they leave. It doesn't take long for Rico and Reg to befriend Merak, who became a blue whistle at a young age due to being a direct apprentice of Ozen. Merak gives them a tour and shows them the huge tree which was hollowed out to create the sleeper cell, or second layer. Merak then cooks for them while Rico takes a bath. Merak tells Rico and Reg that if they stay for longer, they can dive together. However, Rico reluctantly declines, saying that she would love to, but it's her mission to find her mother at the bottom of the abyss. That night, as they're sleeping, Rico tries to find the bathroom, and on her journey finds a strange-looking creature which starts walking towards her. After seeing the situation, she just goes back to the bedroom. The next morning, Rico had wet Reg's bed as she explains the incidents of last night, which no one takes seriously. Ozen appears and takes Rico and Reg to her private chambers. Along the way, however, she tells Rico that the fact that Lisa's white whistle made it to the surface should be enough for her to know that her mother is dead, but Rico is steadfast that her mother sent her this letter. Ozen then reveals that she is the one that recovered Lisa's letter and whistle from a gravesite in the 4th layer, then claiming that the letter is also not Lisa's handwriting, which breaks Rico's heart. Once inside Ozen's chambers, the curse-repelling vessel that saved Rico is seen right in the middle. Ozen approaches it and using her whistle, she activates it, telling Rico that it is indeed called the curse-repelling vessel, explaining that when creatures are placed inside of it, they don't get affected by the strain of ascension and don't die, which is the reason why it got its name. However, that's not quite right. She says that whatever is placed inside the vessel still gets affected by the curse and dies, but then it starts moving around again, telling Rico that she came to understand that due to her, telling her that she was stillborn, and that after placing her inside the vessel, she began to move and cry, implying that she was brought back from the dead. Ozen tells her that the creature she saw last night was actually just some meat she was going to have for dinner, but decided to put it into the vessel. It came to life and then died a few hours later. Ozen then begins taunting Rico, comparing her to that meat and wondering how long it will be until she drops dead. This makes Reg angry, and he begins to attack Ozen, who remains unmoved. She slams Reg around the wall and the ground. Rico tries to help him. Ozen flicks her away, causing her to bleed. This makes Reg angry, and he tries to use his cannon, but Ozen shifts it towards Rico. Reg quickly changes the beam's direction and fires at the tree, which amuses Ozen. She then gets fired up and renders Reg unconscious from her superhuman strength. Reg is then later awakened by the subterranean bandits, a group of delvers who stay at the Seeker base, thanks to Marok bringing them in. Ozen admits that she was testing both Rico and Reg to surmise if they would be able to survive in the abyss, concluding that at their current state, even though Reg is incredibly durable, they wouldn't be able to survive and are in desperate need of training. Ozen then tells Rico she did lie about one more thing, telling her that the grave she found Lisa's things at was in fact empty. While walking off, Ozen sees a flashback of when she became Lisa's mentor and tutoring her from when she was just a red whistle. She thinks how Liz grew up and became a black whistle as well. Ozen then tasks Rico and Reg to survive on the outskirts of the abyss for the next 10 days and suggesting, because it would leave them completely defenseless, Reg should only use the incinerator as a desperate last resort since he faints after using it and is unresponsive for 2 hours. After Ozen leaves, Rico and Reg are left to fend for themselves. They quickly find some aquatic creatures known as ruanas, which indicate the most important aspect of survival, fresh water. After setting up camp and getting settled in, Rico and Reg face a toba that lives in the freshwater pond and almost eats Rico. Reg decides against it to set camp near here. They decide to set fire and some flies cover them. The bandits and Ozen oversee them and understand that they need to catch the Atoba somehow. They continue to oversee them. Ozen gets a flashback of Lisa and how she used to be and how Rico was born as well. They then enjoy a good meal, and after 10 days, Rico and Reg successfully complete their survival training and return to the Seeker camp, where they share dinner with Ozen. She tells them about how time flows differently the deeper into the abyss you delve, explaining that for Rico it's been 10 years since Lisa left, but for Lisa only a few may have passed depending on how time works down there. She then gives them a warning about staying too long in the 5th layer, telling them to avoid other white whistles there, especially one known as Bondrud, stating that he is not as kind as she is. She also asks about the paper that her mother's message was on, and that even the paper is some sort of relic. Later on, Ozen then gives Rico a relic called the Blaze Reap, which was Lisa's abnormally large pickaxe that was salvaged from the 4th layer next to her fake gravesite, which due to its condition can be used sparingly before it starts to break, offering that as an alternative to Reg's incinerator. Then as she explains more about the layers of the abyss, Reg and Rico carefully listen as she tells them what they may encounter and need in their journey. Later on, Maruk and the subterranean bandits bid farewell to Rico and Reg. Ozen then reminisces about the promise that she made to Lisa long ago, which was to help Rico find her way when the time came. Rico and Reg then set off towards the 3rd layer known as the Great Fault, where they find it's just a sheer drop all around. At the fault, there are countless interconnected caverns which let them avoid the flying predators of the lair. Using Reg's arm, they carefully head down the caverns. Meanwhile, back at the orphanage, Shiggy talks about the Great Fault with Nat. As they make their way down one of the caverns, they jump between caves to make sure they can easily move down. They enter a cave which leads them to an old ship that somehow made its way into the side of the walls. Excited by this, Rico goes to search for possible relics that might be hiding, when she instead finds out that they're in a lair belonging to one of those flying predators which attacks them. Having no other option, Reg uses the incinerator to kill it, which alerts a split jaw that they had encounter on their first meeting. It chases after them and they are cornered. Reg is about to fall unconscious, but he manages to save Rico as they fall into a nearby cavern. Feeling hungry, Rico drags Reg along trying to search for food when she is lured in by a sweet smell and swallowed by a creature known as an Amakagame, a strange bulbous creature that is basically just a giant stomach. Worried about being digested, she immediately starts to cut out of it and she escapes. Due to the sweet smell of the Amakagame, the cute little rodents swarm all over her, thinking that she is their fruit. She manages to escape and finds herself in a cavern with an upward slope, a slope so severe that she starts to suffer from the strains of ascension. She starts to make her way up, and she experiences severe vertigo and hallucinations, which is curse of the 3rd layer. She hallucinates about all her friends, Ozen, Maruk, and even her mother, but she snaps out of it when she does not find Reg in her hallucination. Just the Reg awakens while the Crimson Splitshaw finds them again. After briefly fighting it, he uses the Blaze Reaper to chase it off. After setting up camp in a lower cavern, Rico and Reg can now see the fourth layer, the Goblet of Giants. Rico and Reg then travel down to the layer, which they find out is incredibly humid and comprises giant concave discs filled with warm water. As they continue on through this layer, they reach an area heavy with fog. They talk and fascinate about the various creatures. Reg notices something silhouetted behind them, and they slowly start going down. The fog clears, and they see a monster, after which Rico immediately tells Reg that they need to run now, as the creature before them is an orb piercer, a large, incredibly territorial porcupine-like animal with quills so sharp they can penetrate steel and are laced with a deadly poison. Reg tries to run away, however the orb piercer can easily predict his path, hitting the backpack. It then knocks the Blaze Reaper far out of their grasp, and they're not left with many more options. Reg then uses a relic known as the Umbrella to try and block its quills, which still manage to quite easily break through. Reg turns to Rico, telling her that they need to try and get the Blaze Reaper, but he stopped talking when he sees that one of the quills has penetrated Rico's hand, which then begins to inject a lethal poison into her body. With no other options left, Reg is forced to escape by ascending to a safe spot above. Rico starts to bleed all over and is in pain. Rico tells Reg that he needs to cut off her arm in order to prevent the poison from going further, which he reluctantly tries to. Reg breaks her arm so that he can cut it easily, but cannot come to hold the knife. He knows that her arm is swollen due to the poison and that he needs to act fast. However, halfway through, Rico stops breathing and Reg begins to fall into despair. Suddenly, a mysterious rabbit-like being tells Reg to stay calm and guides him on how to perform CPR. After stabilizing Rico, Reg takes her back to the rabbit creature's hideout, where after being worried about the risk of ascension strain, he is told that the curse isn't present here. Once inside, we find out the name of this being is Nanachi, but being a Delver, they would know them as being a hollow. In the hideout, Nanachi begins patching up Rico's swollen left hand and admits to watching and listening to Reg and Rico ever since they entered the Goblet of Giants. Nanachi uses a medicine and rubs on Rico's arm. She operates on Rico and stitches her up as best she could. Nanachi tells him about she had been watching him since they came down here, and that she even heard him sobbing like a baby when he thought she was going to die. While they're chatting, Reg hears a noise from the other room, and Nanachi says it's just her roommate, introducing Reg to her cute little Mitty. Nanachi explains that she is a hollow too. Reg, however, is unfamiliar with the term, and Nanachi explains that the strain of ascension from the 6th layer causes either your immediate death or you lose your humanity and end up like Mitty here. Nanachi then says the reason she personally didn't end up like that is because she is an exception among exceptions. Nanachi then gives Reg a gathering quest for ingredients to heal Rico back to health and also some things for her dinner. Reg heads out to find all the stuff. While looking after Rico, Nanachi seems to have some familiarity with the white whistle that Rico has on her. Reg follows the instruction and gets the demon fish and the black egg that Nanachi requested. He even climbs a tree to get some yellow grass as well as a weird hamster with purple mushrooms growing on top of it. After Reg returns with all of the items and completes the quest, Nanachi places these parasitic water shrooms onto Rico's arm in order to drain the fluid and prevent it from rotting while it heals. Reg asks about the rest of the ingredients and Nanachi tells him that the rest is for her dinner, which upset Reg, that if he had been late, she would have died. Nanachi calms him down and then sends him to go and clean Rico's clothes at the riverbank outside the hideout. As Reg walks towards the riverbank, he makes his way through these flowers known as the Eternal Fortunes, when a memory suddenly resurfaces of him standing by the gravestone that had the Blazerate placed on top of it, and him telling Lisa he'll be going now. Nanachi then snaps him out of the memory and inside, while Rico is left alone. Mitty crawls on top of her as if she knows her. Meanwhile, at the top, a young one is falling sick, and they see that he has been sick. The doctor suggests that his fever needs to go down, but as soon as Jiro comes to check up on him, he sees that the kid is totally fine, which shocks even the doctor, who tells Jiro that the kid is healthy as well. Back in the abyss, Reg walks in, seeing Mitty all over Rico and is ready to square up when Nanachi tells him not to worry about it, and that Mitty is harmless, but has probably just become attached to Rico due to them being around at the same age. She serves him a weird type of black soup that makes Reg feel hesitant, but he tries it still. Later at night, they talk about various relics, and then Nanachi decides to show him relic. In the morning, Nanachi uses a relic called a fog weave, which is a super thin piece of cloth to accurately demonstrate the curse of the abyss' true nature, stating that the curse hits you all at once when you break through one of the layers and all living things permeate around the curse with the sort of force field. However, the farther away you get from the vertical shaft of the abyss, the weaker the curse becomes, which is why Nanachi's hideout is so safe. She also tells him that creatures such as the Orb Piercer can predict the actions of others, due to them being able to see the force field. Nanachi can also see the force field due to being made hollow and wants to give Reg a taste of what it's like. She gives him a little training session back at the main section of the Goblet of Giants. Reg then hears a black whistle Delver being attacked by an Orb Piercer and goes to save him. Being instructed by Nanachi through an earpiece on how to avoid and outplay the Orb Piercer, Reg then uses his incinerator to chase off the beast. Afterwards, he asks the Black Whistle Delver to tell Jiro that both he and Rico are continuing on in their journey. Reg then returns to Nanachi and thanks her for the instructions on how to beat the Orb Piercer. After seeing Reg's incinerator in action, Nanachi then requests Reg do something for her. Reg says he'll do anything, and Nanachi responds, asking him to please kill Mitty. While bringing Reg back, as his use of the incinerator caused him to pass out, Nanachi remembers her past life and the reason that led to them living on the 4th layer. A long time ago, Nanachi was a human in the slums of a foreign country. Suddenly, children all around begin to go outside, and curious about what's going on, Nanachi follows. As they gather outside, they see the reason for all the commotion. A White Whistle Delver who introduces himself as Bondrewd, where he invites all children brave enough to face the abyss to accompany him on his next voyage. Nanachi is one of the many orphans who agree to go along. During their descent to the facility at the 5th layer of the abyss, known as the Edo Front, Nanachi and Mitty have their first interactions, where they immediately hit it off, finding out about each other's inspirations and ambitions. In a flashback, Mitty wanted to become a White Whistle Delver herself, while Nanachi explains that it doesn't matter what they do, as anything from here on out would be better than their previous life. After they arrive at the Edo Front, they're told over the intercom to be careful, that if they climb more than 10 meters, they will suffer the strains of ascending. Soon, Bondrewd call out child after child, until it's just Mitty and Nanachi who are left. Then one night, he comes in and requests Mitty to come with him. As Nanachi and Mitty have bonded over these last weeks, Nanachi breaks out, wanting to be with her. When Nanachi overhears Bondrewd telling one of his men that the experiments he is doing are not against human rights. Nanachi gets worried for Mitty's safety. Nanachi races to try and make sure she's okay, finding her in a large tube. When Bondrewd suddenly appears behind Nanachi, saying that it's her turn now too. Nanachi is placed inside another container next to Mitty, and Bondrewd explains that they are in elevators that can descend into the 6th layer. The destination is a controlled area, making it perfect for research on human subjects and their reaction to the 6th layer's curse, death, or loss of one's humanity. While they are both in shock at what's being told to them, they are suddenly forced to embark on the world's most horrifying roller coaster. After arriving at the next layer, Nanachi becomes even more frightened. Mitty, however, calms her down by telling her that everything will be fine and that she will endure the curse for her, but saying that if she does end up losing her humanity, to please let her soul return to her. They then begin to ascend. Nanachi turns into his current form, while Mitty, on the other hand, starts bleeding severely and screams out in pain to the point of begging to be killed. Nanachi, shocked by this, can do nothing but watch in despair as her best friend turns into the cursed form. After arriving back up, Bondrewd expresses how pleased he is with the results of the experiment, as it seems Mitty took the brunt of the curse of ascension, and doing so spared Nanachi from death. He tells him that he has a great result and that Mitty is gifted as well, since she can regenerate and not die at all. Back at the hideout, Nanachi is explaining her story to Reg as well, and says due to Bondrewd's experiments, Mitty is immortal and can no longer die. After she escaped the Edo Front with Mitty, she's tried many different times in many different ways, but nothing works and she can't end Mitty's suffering. After hearing about it, Reg agrees to her request on trying to kill Mitty using his incinerator. At night, Nanachi tells a story to Mitty and she falls asleep. Nanachi begs Reg that he needs to do this since Mitty cannot die and that she keeps on suffering since her soul is trapped in that form. Reg only agrees to it if Nanachi does not after he sends Mitty off. Sometime later, Nanachi makes a nice little spot for Mitty. Just when Reg is about to fire, Nanachi steps in for one last goodbye and hugs Mitty. She tells her how important she is to him and that her hugs are always warm, and steps out. Reg understands the felling and uses his incinerator to completely disintegrating Mitty, finally freeing her from her suffering, with Nanachi wailing in grief nearby. Reg falls unconscious due to the beam, and he sees a dream of Lisa, who is offering him food, but he wakes up to the sound of Rico, who had gained consciousness. Rico starts to make them some food, which makes Nanachi eat all of it, since it was the first time he ate something so good. Rico asked about Mitty as she remembered seeing another person. Nanachi asks how she knows about the person, to which she tells them that while she was unconscious, she had this terrible nightmare, but her fears were eased when she felt the presence of someone else with her. She tells them that she heard another girl crying and they made sure to help each other. Then, after feeling the presence's soul being freed, she woke up also. They decide to spend some time in a natural hot spring with Reg, which will heal Rico as well. Reg joins in with Rico as Nanachi teases him. They then remove the parasitic water shrooms from her left hand as well. Rico tries to move her hand since her hand was cut up. Reg comes to apologize about her mangled arm, but Rico forgives her since he was not at fault. Later on, Rico asks Nanachi to join their quest in finding Lisa, in which Nanachi agrees, having nothing left to keep her here. Before leaving the hideout, they stock up on much-needed goods and supplies necessary for the journey, and before delving deeper, send up a mail balloon in hopes of it reaching back home, which after some time is eventually reached by Nat and Shiggy on the surface. Elsewhere, down on the Edo front, Bondrewd has been watching Mitty and Nanachi through their life signatures on a board. After seeing that Nanachi somehow managed to kill Mitty, he anticipates Nanachi's soon arrival. The second season starts and we see a girl called Vuko who is telling about how she got on this journey and that when she had no one, a man took her in and used to talk about many things and how he was a big shot in his time. She loathed him as he assaulted her every time. She tells that one time he went off to sea and came across a charcoal ship whose occupants had been somehow changed. They found a body that was charred and still burning, a body that was moving even after being cut in half, some organs without any skins, but they saw an old man who seemed perfectly fine. He tells them about the city of gold that lies at the bottom of the man-eating pit. The man takes the compass and tells all this to the girl while assaulting her and even burns her head. She still remembers all this as that time had passed and now she was one of the soldiers heading out to find this city of gold as well and how he used to say awful things to her. She gets up to puke as she is not accustomed to sea travel. Their leader was Yuki, who often eats raw bugs to stay strong. He tells her that they are almost at the pit and soon the star compass will point straight. He tells her that when she brought the compass to him it felt like destiny and he heads off to catch some rats. Just then Belaf comes and tells her that she should not mind Wazukian as he is sincere and is always right about his decisions. He adds that he had foretold her being part of the 3 sages a day before she actually joined and that he is gifted. She tells him that if it's really out for her to be a part of team and that she can't even be sold since she is ugly and that she can only help people. Belaf tells her that beauty does not lie in appearance, status, or prestige, but in fact it lies in the eyes of the user. He tells her that her look in the eyes is the true beauty and she should find light in her dark eyes. She feels shy while one of her crewmates calls her inside to tend to a sick patient, so she runs off. Later in the night, as they travel through a heavy storm, Belaf tells Wazukian that their ship is the only one that remains and is worried if they will make it or not. Just then, Vuko runs up and shows them the compass, which is almost straight. They look around and see a single island in the middle of the stormy sea. As they traveled in the island, they came across some inhabitants who were hesitant to share information since others before them were hostile. Their older chief makes a deal to lend information in exchange for the compass and Vuko agrees. Belaf asks why since she attached to it and she tells him that she is seeking something in the darkness and will find it. They head out and are joined by a little girl who seems to have grown attached to Vuko, who urges them to take her since she has been exiled. Wazukian agrees since they do need a guide. They head down and face deep into the abyss, crossing several weird places, and in the last, they enter an eyeball-type gate. As Vuko jumps, we see Rico, Reg, and Nanachi are seen crossing a similar place. Reg thanks Nanachi for being so positive even after all that's happened. Just then, the eyeball-shaped sphere descends down and they see the sea of corpses. As they landed, we see Vuko and her group who also had descended to the same place long before, and now Rico and the others were down there as well. They see a huge fossilized city that seems to be embedded into the crystals in the ground around it. They venture around the 6th layer where no human is known to return. They see a snaptrack dragon who are very aggressive. Nanachi considers it best to not engage with it, and they see some Mizojacks, whose eggs are said to be tasty. Their conversation is cut short when some explosions are seen caused by geothermal vents which shoot out lava and leave poisonous gas. They quickly seek shelter and cook the eggs, which taste rather delicious. They decide to send up a letter to tell their friends about their adventure, but the message balloon is destroyed by the creatures mid-flight, which leaves Rico shocked since she was super excited. When they wake up, Nanachi sees that their mail from earlier is lying on the ground with a symbol on it. Rico wakes up and says that her Purishka is gone as well. Nanachi explains that whoever took it easily tracked them, got through Reg's arms, and left this message with ease. They decided to track this person to get back what is theirs. They find some animals with stuffed hair, which a shock is theirs as well, which meant that whoever did this plucked their hair when they were asleep as well. They follow the clues and are led to a strange bridge which looks like a carcass of an animal. As they start to head inside, Reg feels the presences of someone but decides to head in any way. They cross a barrier, and when they head inside, they seek a variety of creatures whom they had never seen before. One of the creatures approaches them and asks if they are cave raiders as well. They ask if he is the one who took Rico's white whistle, and it starts moving so they decide to follow him. Nanachi, Reg, and Rico follow the strange creature up some stairs. Nanachi, on the other hand, tells Reg to stay vigilant since she could not read the movements due to the force field. They head into a room where they see a creature breaking into Purishka, which startles Rico. Reg tries to interfere, but Rico stops him, saying that Purishka does not mind. The other creature tells them that it encased and requires to be refined in order to be used easily. The creature then takes them elsewhere, which looks like a market where you can buy and sell things of equal value. Magikaja tells her that she can trade something of equal value to get anything. She spots one of her mother's drawings and wishes to trade with them, but Magikaja tells her that she has to trade herself, meaning her eyes, skin, or fat, and that Kaja would love to buy her as a vessel. Rico declines and tells her that she needs to travel to the bottom of the pit. Magikaja declines and then bargains with the other seller in order to get Rico that page. Rico enjoys the market a lot as Magikaja tells her about the various vessels that live here and how they are bound to this place. He also tells how Nanachi is a great hollow that has life inside her. While being surrounded by various hollows, they hear a weird sound after which one of the hollows is swallowed by a black goo. As the goo takes all of the hollow's belongings, Magikaja tells them that since Rico set the value of her pet as too high, the village acted on it and balanced it since the hollow damaged her pet. The goo even tore apart the hollow since the set value was too high and needed the life of the hollow as well. She gets a coin return, and Magikaja tells Rico and the others that no one will hurt them since they all cannot afford them. Rico and the others go to the inn where Rico's stomach gets upset due to the weird food. Meanwhile, there is a commotion outside and Reg goes to investigate. Magikaja tells them about Faputa, who is a high-status female, like a princess of the Hollows. Hearing this, we see a flashback to Rico and Belaf, who had also entered the city before but were finding it hard to survive. The furball-type creature points at Reg and quickly jumps in from behind. Reg analyzes her as she looks at his hand. Reg thinks of her as a hollow similar to Nanachi. The creature somehow knows Reg, and Reg asks if she has seen him before or not. The Faputa looks around and escapes with Reg and climbs on top of the huge metal monster. Meanwhile, Magikaja takes Nanachi to the market to look for some fresh water and fruit. He asks what she could trade for them and what her value is. Nanachi tells him that in terms of value, she is worth more than Mitty, to which Magikaja tells her that all value was set by the three sages and that the masked man who left behind the curse, she knows him and Belaf as well. Nanachi thinks she misheard him, and the scene shifts to Reg and the Faputa who took Reg to cave. Reg tells her that he lost his memories and that he also wants to know what happened to him. Faputa inspects him properly and holds him to the wall. Faputa pocks him in his stomach to check if he really is Reg. Later on, Reg pushes her away as she was becoming too close for comfort. Reg then decides to leave as he was worried about Rico. Faputa tells him that what will he do when the human dies, to which Reg tells him that he will think about it when the time comes and leaves. Faputa gets mad at him for abandoning her. Reg leaves while the other huge robot stares at him. Back at the inn, Rico has stomach issues and looks for Reg and Nanachi. The innkeeper tells her that Nanachi went to the market, so she decides to go look for her. She asks the other hollows who corner her and try to steal her pet away, but the same hollow form before steps in and saves Mitty, while the black goo appears for the balancing. Nanachi and Magikaja head out to a place Nanachi wants to visit, while Rico visits the market and grabs a quick snack. The cook over there understands Rico's language and tells her about others who can understand it as well. She pointed towards a hollow and tells her that he was known as Wazukian of the three stages. Meanwhile, Magikaja takes Nanachi to meet Belaf of the three sages. Nanachi sees a huge snake-type dragon along with Mitty, which shocks Nanachi. This was all done thanks to Rico, who in a flashback tells how her desires and value can be manifested. Nanachi hugs Mitty while Belaf asks why they came to the village. Somewhere else, Reg is lost as hiding since the Turbid dragon was chasing him. As he tries to run, the beat attacks him and Reg falls off cliff, only to be rescued by the huge robot. The robot asked Reg to leave as soon as he can since he cannot control Faputa. The giant robot tells Reg that like him is also an interference unit and that he needs gain back his data. Back at the restaurant, Wazukian talks with Rico about the three sages. The chef tells her that the three sages are the ones who built this village. Rico asks if she can learn their language, and the chef shows her a book which has words and phrases. Rico asks about any places her friends might have gone, and she tells her about a weird places where not even hollows go. Rico decides to go there as well in order to get more information and climbs down. When she reaches the bottom, her feet get covered in similar black goo. As she went closer, the goo began to move and become more alive. As they head deeper, Rico hears a voice, so she went towards it and sees a girl who is known as Vuko. She tells them how she has been here for so long and how they created such a village. She tells them that she is human while the rest of her friends became hollows. She adds that if they get too lost, they would also become hollows. Rico sets her free and asks her help find her friends. Rico heads up for the first time in a while and is shocked to see the changes in the village. She takes Rico to Bella's house, and as soon as she enters, she finds Nanachi on the ground and asks Magikaja what happened. Belaf appears and tells her that Nanachi sold herself in order to be with Mitty, and that now he owns her as a vessel. Rico tells Belaf that she knew Mitty as well, but how was he able to get her? Belaf explains that he wanted to buy Mitty from the masked man, but he would not exchange her for anything, so he sacrificed half his life to get an exact copy of Mitty. Rico asks what she can do in order to get her friends back, to which Belaf tells her if she offers herself as a vessel, then he will let them go. Rico says that a whole human is too far-fetched and that is too greedy. Belaf then tells her that she has these options. Either she can give both her eyes, both her legs, or half of her organs in order to get them back, and she must choose. Rico returns and tells Vuko that Belaf has taken both Mitty and Nanachi. Just then, a huge spike hits the wall. Rico asks what's happening, and Vuko tells her the city is doing a hunt since they cannot leave, and so they lure the monster into the city. Just then, Rico thinks of her whistle and heads out to the shop. She asks the worker to give her parbushka back, and he returns it saying that it is very precious and she should run. Meanwhile, the purple goo monster destroys the city and even kills one of the giant hollows by melting it. Magikaja tells them that this monster came once before but escaped. Just then, another huge hollow emerged from the cave and swung its sword, but the goo kept attacking. Even Magikaja was worried since the sword was not working due to less space. Rico asked if the other sages would help, but they don't come out unless there is a real threat. Just then, the chef appears and asks what they are doing. She tells him that all hollows are here to protect the market. While the goo monster killed the other huge hollow, Rico thought of a plan since Vuko told her that she had not seen such a monster before, which led Rico to analyze the monster and better understand how to defeat it. Rico asked Magikaja for a few things to help her. The goo monster then heads into the market, where all the monsters were ready to fend off the beast. Rico lures the monster with Magikaja and tries to take the monster to an inner place where it gets tricked by its own reflection. This gives Rico the opportunity to launch the attack, and they defeat the monster. The chef tells her that she did not have to give up her hair to help and that she needs to take care of herself. Just then, the goo monster awakens and grabs a few monsters, which makes Rico sad, so she uses her whistle to save everyone. The whistle shockingly called Ray, who helped them save the monsters. Wazukian enters the place and asks if he missed all the action. Rico is happy that everyone is safe. She asks Wazukian about how she can get her friends back from Belaf. He tells them if they can get some part of Faputa, then maybe, but that is impossible. This shocks Reg since he met Faputa recently. Rico asks how Faputa is like, and he tells them he must go see her first. Vuko tells them she knows about Faputa since she is one of the 3 sages as well. She explains that she knows about the true desires of Faputa since she knew her before as well. She tells them everything and thinks to herself about Irumyuui and that she will help set all of them free. As Vuko explains the story, she tells them how her crew got here in the first place. She explains that they first met some interference units who used to search and observe things. They also tested out the workings of the pod and how the hollow was used to operate it, but they also found out that once they descend down, they will not be able to go back up since they will be turned to monsters as well. He tells them that since they cannot go up now, they must become accustomed to the place and should uncover the truth of the Golden City and become its residents. They set out to establish food and water. Rico tells Belaf that the girl is called Irumyuui. Belaf is fascinated when he sees that Irumyuui can speak the language that is written on the wall, which is unknown to them. Later on, Vuko is called when a small hollow enters the tent, but Irumyuui thinks that it is cute and plays with it. Belaf and Wazukian decide to secure fresh water in order to survive since the interference units did not know where to find any. They go to one of the sources and find some drinkable water, and now they can hunt for food and prepare the village so that they can settle easily. They continue hunting and gathering, and Vuko gives Arium a necklace. A few days later, Vuko wakes up and finds Arium with a high fever. The others called her to see the others who were affected as well. Some were fossilized and some became to deform. Belaf heads to investigate and learns that the water well was in fact inside of a huge fossilized creature, which made it causing all the sudden deformations and changes. Back at the camp, Wazukian asked Vuko if she knew what this relic was and if it is of some use. Belaf then explains the truth about the water well, and Wazukian knows that it's still the only way to properly make food and quench their thirst. They then take the relic to the interference units and ask what it is. The units ask how they got hold of this relic, and that it is a wish-granting relic, which is suitable in hands of kids since adults always have complex judgments. Vuko thinks how she should assess the situation and that even thought the water is dangerous, they still need it. Just then, Vuko screams in pain, so Vuko decides to use the wish-granting relic on Arium as she was a kid and would wish for herself to be better as she's in pain. Wazukian tells Vuko that the child will be their salvation as if he knew that she would save them. She gave the relic to Arium and it soon combined with her. Sometime later, almost everyone started to fall ill. Even those who could work began to get sick. Wazukian and Belaf still support Arium as she has a strong connection with Vuko. They decide to trust her instincts as well. After some time, more people fell ill. One day, Vuko sees that Arium gave birth to a weird hollow, but it could not survive since it had no organs inside them. This continued for many times, and each time the hollow died, which made Arium sad, and she cried each time. Then Vuko fell ill, and still she was concerned about Arium as she was not there to support her. Laying on the ground, Vuko felt someone's presence, and she sees a glimpse of Wazukian as he smiled and said that he told her that the kid would be their salvation. Meanwhile, as Vuko told her story, Reg head out to meet Faputa and asks her help to retrieve her friends. She asks if he will still keep his promise, but Reg asks if she tells her promise he will keep it if he can. Faputa then tears of her arm and offers it to Reg, saying that she will offer up anything for their promise. Back at Vuko's story, we see that she meets Belaf, who is worried and keeps pulling his own face. Wazukian enters and takes Vuko to see Arium, who had grown huge. She is shocked to see that Arium had lost the ability to speak and that Wazukian was using her babies as food since they were the only way to get better. Vuko is shocked to see this and cannot bear it either. She tries to feed Belaf as well, but he refuses since he knows the truth. Vuko goes to see Arium again and sees the Cradle of Wishes. Wazukian tells her that he gave her another since Vuko was sick and she needed someone like her. Vuko is even more disturbed, but just then Arium starts to move around and Wazukian tells her that now her true wish will be seen by everyone. They follow Arium to an open place. They see her shed skin and devour some creatures as well. Belaf could not handle it anymore and goes to Arium and begs her to change him since he could not live like this anymore. Just then, Irumyuui changes and creates an entrance where Belaf enters and is changed. Everyone is happy to see Belaf's new form. Wazuki tells all of them to offer their souls and bodies to Irumyuui as she is their queen. Rico isn't happy and tells Wazuki that she wanted to be free and decides to kill herself. Just when she was about to fall, but he grabs her and Vuko learns that he had used a cradle of wishes on himself before. She falls unconscious, and when she wakes up she is locked inside Irumyuui's head, and Wazuki had also been transformed into a hollow. He tells her that she is inside of Irumyuui's head, and this is how they can easily form a connection. Rico explains that even though Irumyuui had lost her body, but her heart and mind were still here, and that she also had one last wish that she always longed for. All of them were gathered to see an egg, and when it hatched it was none other than Faputa. It was a living, breathing child that Irumyuui craved for with only one purpose, which was to kill all hollows inside the barrier. She finished explaining the story to everyone. Rico asks her what is the purpose of Faputa, and she tells her that Faputa wants to free her mother who is trapped here. Meanwhile, Reg takes the arm that Faputa gave him as she rode on his head. She asks him to pat her head as well. The huge robot tells them that the creatures are getting angry due to her blood and that they should hurry. Rico sees Reg bring an arm and they head inside. Faputa looks at Rico's whistle and recognizes it. They decide how to take the arm to Belaf, and Vuko tells them that they should not just offer him it like that. She also asks how he was able to get it, to which Reg says that he promised to destroy the village since that's what her mother wanted. Wazuki, on the other hand, tells her that he came to know about them through the masked man, and that he had told them that similar people would come to the caves, some for wealth and some who had no way to go. The other hollows share their experience as well, and that they gained so much since they came here. Rico also tells that even if she does not know Wazukian, she understands that she had wished for a safe haven for everyone to thrive in. She asks him that he did sought out the Golden City and that this layer must be just the entrance. She urges him to not give up on his adventure for the city. Wazukian tells her that he wishes to, but just like the others, he cannot leave the village. Rico then thinks that maybe she can use the Cradle of Desires, and maybe this is what he wants as she is a child and can easily wish for it. He asks how he thought of such a thing, while the others say that he should stop challenging the abyss. As they are speaking, the ground starts to shake and the huge hollow comes up. Rico gets taken away with Wazuki and tells them that the hollow wants Faputa's flesh. Reg fends of a few attacks, and Wazuki tells Vuko that he was made by Irumyuui and that he just appeared one day. The black goo also resurfaces and merges with the big hollow. Vuko yells that the creature won't be affected by the balancing since it is there to protect them. The hollow uses the slime to create a huge veil, using the slime and traps all the hollows as well. It tries to grab Reg as well, and he falls into the slime. He decides to use his cannon to destroy the beasts since no one was behind him. The beast falls, and Reg tells everyone that since the gate is destroyed, Faputa would be coming after them, so they should run and hide until he wakes up. Faputa and the huge robot enter. The beast also wakes up and tries to kill Faputa, but is shot down by the robot's cannon. She tells all of them that she would not spare anyone since they all caused her pain, and that they speak in her mother's tongue and sent her prayers when they were ones who inflicted pain on her, ate her children who only had a few breaths. She tells them that she will eradicate them all, even destroys the black goo with little to no effort. Meanwhile, Nanachi, who talks with Mitty, Belaf also sets her free since Faputa is here to destroy all. Belaf tells her that his time has come and he must go to protect everyone since Faputa is here and will not rest until all is destroyed. He tells them that they are free and they should escape as well. Nanachi also decides to leave. He tells her that Mitty cannot cross the boundaries of the village since she will cease to exist. She cannot think of letting Mitty go again and starts to cry, thinking about how she wanted to meet Mitty again as well. Nanachi picks up Mitty and takes her the boundary since she wanted to see of Mitty once again. Mitty slowly disappears as Nanachi crosses the border, and the other hollows do the same after giving her a token of appreciation. Belaf heads out to confront Faputa as well. A few hours later, Reg wakes up and he sees that the huge robot is protecting them. He tells Reg that the eternal peace is finished and Faputa is on a rampage. He quickly sees Faputa, who has gone bonkers and is destroying all the hollows. Faputa attacks the various hollows and completely annihilates them. Wazuki and Vuko watch from afar as they see the village fall to ruin. Rico tells Reg that everyone helped saving her, and that now if she is not stopped, then everyone in the village would die. Reg steps and asks Faputa to take it easy, but she knew his intentions and tells him to say it clearly as she knows he will try to protect them. While killing a hollow, she tells him that she still won't stop killing, and that if he wants a beating, she will give him one. In a flashback, we see that one of the interference units that was with Faputa gets destroyed, and she is crying over him when Reg appears. Faputa is skeptical at first, but still fought him. Back in the present, she tells him that when he first encountered her, she knew that he was one of Gabiro's men who was here to help her, but since he has lost his memories, he will be of no help to her. She attacks Reg and then thinks that since she cannot hurt him from the outside, she will try the insides and inserts her fist in his mouth, causing Reg to feel pain and cry. Back in the flashback, Faputa used to love Reg and that she was happy with him and how he gave her a token of friendship as well. While the fought Faputa remembered all this, Reg asks Rico to use the whistle again, and this is the only way to stoke Faputa. He transforms as his armor changes. Faputa is shocked as well while Reg throws her up in the air. Faputa gets mad and recognizes the whistle that she asked Gabbro to send. She fights Reg and explains that she wanted to test the human child that would she be able to find her mother without the whistle. As the battle takes him outside, Reg sees flames falling down. Faputa tells him that this must jog his memories. Meanwhile, Waskiwan sees that the Iron Rain has started and he uses his scales to protect everyone. In a flashback, Faputa shows Reg how her mother trapped inside there and that she needed to kill those who hurt her. At that time, he told her that after he delivers what he needs, he will return and spend more time with her. Back in the present, he cries over her and tells her that he remembers all the crying and laughing that they had. He stops, but Faputa had something else in mind and drives Reg into the ground. Rico asks what happened to Reg. Just then, Faputa brings Reg in her arms and asks the giant beast to hold him down so that he does not interfere. Faputa asks why Reg is not able to recognize her and that he shall kill Rico, since she was the one who made him forget everything. Faputa goes into the attack, but Huge Robot interferes and says that if she commits this act, she will not be able to get Reg back. The robot falls and Faputa is hurt even more. As she's about to attack again, she is hit and thrown back. This time, Belaf and Nanachi come to rescue. Faputa picks up her mother's scent in Belaf and thinks that he must have consumed her as well. She gets mad and attacks him, but Belaf had a gift for her. As she struck him, he showered her with memories of her mother and told her that he always wanted to give her all these moments. Faputa becomes less aggressive while Wazukian takes Rico down. Faputa tells them that they need to get away as monsters are coming since the barrier is down. All the monsters wreak havoc and destroy the village. Faputa puts up a fight, but she is no match for all these beasts. Just then, the black goo tries to save her, but the Tripinet dragon destroys it. Faputa could not move as she was exhausted, and with his dying breath, Gabu saves her by getting the attention of the giant beast. She tries to save him, but is pinned down and gets launched by the dragon's attack. As she laid on the ground thinking that she is about to die, the hollows gathered around her and offered themselves as food so that Faputa could gain her health back. Faputa gets up and decides her fate. Faputa commands the black goo and the monster to fend all the monsters and kills off monsters herself as well. She tries to attack the Trinap dragon and launches herself on it. In a flashback, we see that Faputa, who while roaming around sees Gebu who was in the ground. We see how she helped to build himself and how he taught her about Haku. She then names him Gabu since she can be her guardian. She can found Reg and the others and how she stole the key only to have it beautified. Back in the present, Faputa keeps attacking the monsters. Rico wakes up and sees that Nanachi and Reg are with her while Faputa fights the enemy alone. They travel down and they find Wazukian who is on the ground like an empty shell. He tells them they are the tip of the kids who set out to travel the pit. As he turns into ashes, he tells them that they need to go further and make sure they seek what they desire. Just then, everyone hears Faputa scream and they say that they must bid farewell as for the first time the princess is calling for them. Rico is happy and delighted as they can travel further. The chef also hands her one of her mother's drawings as well and they head out. Rico is seen walking out of the boundary and she thinks how Rico, who is smaller than her and is still courageous enough to make all these decisions. She thinks how all the young kids have made it this far and how she did decide one thing all by herself, which was to join on this amazing adventure with all of her friends. She makes her way up but soon stops as her body starts to deform. She thinks that she was human all this time and is turning into a hollow. She wanted to apologize to Irumyuui but could not. She's about to die when one of her friends saves her by throwing her down. Nanachi appears and takes her with her. As the monsters take down the village, Faputa attacks them as well with every ounce of her body. She keeps regenerating and attacks them. Reg also joins in, which makes Faputa feel happy yet intrigued as to why he was here. He tells her that Vuko wants to tell her something. He plans to stall them and uses the whistle again. Reg heads out and takes down on the dragon. Meanwhile, Faputa tells them that she will devour them in order to free her mother. Reg takes the beasts outside and traps them on the bridge. He then destroys the bridge, leaving the monsters down on the ground. On the other hand, Faputa devours all hollows and gains memories of the others as well. She then uses that power to spread the white goo all over. Vuko remembers how she took care of Irumyuui and how she could not forgive herself. Faputa uses the last of her energy to eradicate the tower while the others flee. As Faputa falls down, she thinks that maybe she should have eaten Ma and Vuko as well, but Reg quickly pulls her to safety as well as the tower falls down on itself. Magikaja stops as his legs stop moving, and as he died, he gave control to Faputa's body one last time and saves everyone. As Rico wakes up, she sees that the monsters started killing each other and that now they are safe from harm's way. Rico approaches Faputa and tries to speak to her. She somehow tells her how she is similar to her mother and how she is just as clingy, touchy, and outgoing as ever. Faputa cries and misses her, as she was the closest thing she had to a mother. Faputa digs a grave for Vuko and buries her, thinking that their souls will find their ways. Reg asks Faputa to join them as they venture on, but she is hesitant since he does not remember her promise. He tells her that he will remember, but he still cherishes her the same. Faputa joins and asks everyone's roles as well. She thinks Reg will gain his memories back and says that she will think about joining him if she wishes.